All right, Ben Bateman here with the Popcorn Talk Network, reporting live from San Diego Comic-Con with Mr. Bear McCreary. He's the Walking Dead guy. He's the 10 Cloverfield Lane guy. He's the man, the genius behind the music. How are you, dude?
I'm doing well. Doing really well.
Yeah, we got quite the location here for the interview. This is great.
I know, this is lovely.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit here and hang out after we're done. This is great.
Yeah, this is good. Can we get a mimosa over here, maybe, someone? So, since last I talked to you, 10 Cloverfield Lane came out.
Yeah.
That's a big one. That was a huge one for you. I mean, that movie got such rave reviews.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about making that soundtrack, making the music for it.
Well, what was interesting about it is that it was a bad robot film that the director, Dan Trachtenberg, first-time filmmaker on a feature level, was a big fan of Battlestar Galactica. And he called me in, and we met on it, and he goes, hey, let's do this movie. And I was excited, and the script was really powerful, had this great couple of twists in it. And the whole time I just kept thinking, like, well, this is a bad robot movie, but I wonder if that means, like, I might meet JJ at some point, you know? He was working on, what was he working on? Some little Star Wars movie at the time. So Star Wars comes out right around the time that we're in post on 10 Cloverfield Lane. And then basically the last 2 months of post, JJ's involved every day. And so suddenly this thing that I thought, I wonder if I'm going to meet JJ at any point, becomes JJ, Dan, and I are working very closely on an almost daily basis to try to shape this thing. And it was an incredible experience. I mean, JJ had such insight into how to communicate to an audience seemingly contradictory things. That you're going to see an intimate story about a young woman who's trapped in a single location, but maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe you're seeing a bigger story than that. Maybe this is a big movie. And the music was one of the key ways that I think the filmmakers used to communicate to the audience that you're going to spend most of your time in this very confined space, but hang on, there's more out there, you know?
You know, do you ever think about how, and I'm sure you've thought about this a million times, it's a silly question, do you ever, but when you're watching a favorite movie of yours, or even actually listening to a favorite album of yours, there's like a break after a guitar solo, or like a quick moment where like somebody gives a look and there's just a sound, just one sound for 1 second, and you've seen it enough times that you come to expect it, but it emotionally triggers something huge for you. When you're making like a movie like Cloverfield and you're doing that and it has those intense scenes, do you sometimes really just focus on that one sound, that 1 millisecond?
It's a really interesting observation, and actually for me, finding out what a unique sound is for a project is sometimes the most important step, the very beginning. So in the case of 10 Cloverfield Lane, there were two things that I needed, two sounds. I needed a sound to represent Michelle, the main character, and I wanted a sound to kind of represent the bunker, Howard, the John Goodman character, the world. And for that, I wanted something subterranean and big and heavy and low. And I thought of an instrument called the blaster beam.
The blaster beam?
The blaster beam. I'm not making this up.
Are you sure JJ didn't just bring that from Star Wars and give it to you? That's what it sounds like.
Funny you'd mention, not Star Wars, Star Trek.
Ah, it was really from that.
It was from Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Okay.
It was a sound, it was an experimental instrument made in the 70s, and Jerry Goldsmith wrote it for the V'ger theme, all the outer space shots. If you ever rewatch Star Trek the Motion Picture, there's this low, it just sounds like a gong, or like this gong, this huge sound. It was an acoustic instrument called a blaster beam. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be cool? I wonder if that guy like lives in LA. And I tracked him down, sure enough. The guy who made that instrument lives in LA, and I got to write for the blaster beam for 10 Cloverfield Lane. And it was like that sound, that heavy, deep, subterranean sound. I keep doing this with my hands because the thing is like 18 feet long.
It was the size.
Imagine a pedal steel guitar that is like 18 feet long with about a dozen strings, and he hits it with mallets and stuff. It sounds so otherworldly. But once I found that and got this guy involved, then I had a sound that was the score.
It sounds like you had the blaster beam. I can't imagine, like, did you get to keep the blaster beam?
I wish, man. No? I want him to build me one. No, I used the original blaster beam that they used on Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Unbelievable.
And it was cool because I asked the guy, when was the last time you used this in a film score? And he thought about it, and he's like, 35 years ago.
Wow.
So really it was getting to pull something out of, you know, science fiction music history and bring it to a new audience. That was really fun.
I mean, so jumping around and thinking about bringing something to that audience, like these audiences, and these are audiences that have so much love for the subject matter. With Battlestar, obviously, is one of the most famous things you've ever got to work on.
Yeah.
You wrote the title theme for The Walking Dead, and you worked on like 40 episodes or something, right? Or more than
I
that.
think we're going on 70th. I think we'll end up at, we're nearing 100 episodes on Walking Dead at this point.
That is wild stuff. So, tell me a little bit about making the title theme for that, because at this point it's so iconic. I've heard, I've listened to it so many times.
What's fun about the title theme is that when I was working with Frank Darabont on the first episode, we wanted a very minimal approach to music. And you look at that episode kind of critically, there's not a lot of music in it. The music that shows up, I think, makes a big impact. And I struggled with the main title theme. I really couldn't hear it, So I thought, I'll just start scoring some scenes and see if it comes to me. And there's one scene in that episode that resembles an action scene. Yeah. It's actually a very kind of subdued story, that first episode.
Yeah, right.
At the end, he's crawling under the tank.
Yep.
And the walkers are crawling after him, and he's trying to get inside the tank. And I was like, my blood was pumping, and I'm watching that scene, and I was like, okay, I got to do something exciting. And I was sitting at the piano, and I was watching the scene, and I just started going, da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na. And I stopped, because I went, oh my God, that might be the main title.
Found it.
So sure enough, I closed that session, I opened up the main title, I threw this idea down really quickly, and I sent it to Frank, and I was like, I don't know, man, what do you think?
Yeah.
He loved it, AMC loved it, and that was it. It happened very quickly, and it was, I always think about that whenever I see that scene, that somehow that was the inspiration for the main title,
That's unbelievable. You mentioned closing the session. Do you work in Cubase, Pro Tools?
I work in Digital Performer, and we record in Pro Tools.
Okay, sure.
So I've worked in Digital Performer for a long time, so it's a fun program.
Cool. And you tend to use a lot of like MIDI triggers, or you use a lot of like real instruments? You mix it up?
It's a mix of both. I write in a digital environment, but I record with live instruments. So I work with live orchestras, I work with live players, and so my whole sort of aesthetic is built around being able to write very quickly in a digital environment, being able to send a mock-up to a producer very quickly, like, this is going to be strings, and it sounds like strings. Like, you don't have to use your imagination. You hear something that sounds pretty.
You throw together a quick MIDI thing, and then
we're going to go into the studio and record it with real strings, and it'll sound incredible. So that's been a very useful process for me, because it allows me to communicate quickly with filmmakers,
Now, I've talked to Kirkman a bunch of times about this whole who died, who did Negan kill thing, and I'm sure you know, because I'm sure you wrote the music.
No, yes.
So, give me anything you can give me at all. He's been so tight-lipped about it. I almost tricked one of his producers in another show into telling me during an interview.
Wow.
Not even close, though. Not even close.
I will say that it will be worth the wait.
Okay.
I know that some fans were very vocal that they felt like they wanted to see something at the end of the season that they didn't get to see.
Yeah.
And what they will see is going to be worth the wait. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Are you a fan of the comics? Have you read the comics?
Huge fan of the comics.
Okay, gigantic.
Yeah, and
so you know about issue 100. So you know what you know what everybody thinks is going to happen.
Everybody thinks is going to happen, and I say it will be worth the wait.
Is there any part of you that, as the comic book fan who did read that and sort of would like to experience it for the first time, there's a little disappointing that you do know, actually, and you got to probably watch it 100 times without sound?
It's interesting, because I'm a huge fan of The Walking Dead and all my projects, but ones that are based on a pre-existing source material, I do appreciate places where Frank Darabont, Glenn Mazzara, and now Scott Gimple have deviated from the source material, from Kirkman's source material, because the thrill of turning those pages and seeing something shocking, that's why we read The Walking Dead. We love it. And if you deprive comic fans of that by following the comic book 100%, you're actually missing out on an essential part of the experience. So I feel like it's an interesting balance, right? You want to know what's coming, but I think secretly, fans of the comic, we always appreciate it when we're thrown a curveball.
Absolutely. Are you reading Outcast? Do you like that as well?
I'm behind on Outcast. I got to catch up. I can't wait, though.
I got to sit down with Patrick Fugit yesterday and do a one-on-one, and it turns out he has a Tom Cruise impression, so we had a cruise off during the interview.
No way. I got to see that. That's hilarious.
Anyway, Outcast is great. Walking Dead's great. You're doing great stuff, man. So thank you so much for talking to us. I'm excited to see you around the con and see what you do in that episode. It's going to be so exciting.
It's going to be a good one.
All right. Bye, guys.